You start noticing it in moments that used to feel easy. A conversation that normally moved without resistance suddenly feels heavier halfway through, and before answering something simple, there is a pause that did not used to exist. Not outside you, inside you. Chosen one. At first, you try explaining it away. Stress, burnout, too much responsibility, too much thinking. But the feeling keeps returning in places that once felt automatic. You feel it after agreeing to things you never wanted to say yes to. You feel it sitting quietly after certain conversations end. You feel it when your body reacts before your mind finishes convincing you that everything is fine. And slowly, something becomes harder to ignore. The heaviness is not random anymore. Something inside you has started resisting the life you are still trying to move through the old way. At first, the changes are subtle enough to dismiss. Nothing around you looks dramatically different. Same routines, same responsibilities, same people. But internally, your experience inside those things has already started changing. You notice how quickly your energy disappears around certain conversations, how long you stare at messages before replying, how often your chest tightens before saying yes to something you already know you do not want. The hesitation itself becomes noticeable. That part feels unfamiliar. You used to move through situations automatically, respond automatically, adapt automatically. Now there is friction where automatic behavior used to exist. And during those pauses, things you normally moved too quickly to notice begin becoming visible. The pressure in your body before making yourself agreeable. The exhaustion after pretending something did not affect you. The strange disconnect between what you say externally and what you feel internally afterward. Nothing dramatic happened. That is part of what makes the experience confusing. Life still looks normal from the outside. You still go where you are expected to go. Still answer people. Still keep things moving. But internally, something no longer fits the same way it used to. You can still perform the old behaviors. Still explain yourself. Still smooth situations over. Still carry emotional weight that was never supposed to belong entirely to you. But now you feel yourself doing it while it is happening. And once awareness enters a pattern directly, the experience changes permanently. The room still looks the same. The conversation continues normally. Most people may not notice anything at all. But internally, something already shifted. You probably spent some time trying to force yourself backward, trying to become the easier version of yourself again. The version that tolerated things without carrying tension afterward. The version that could adjust instantly and move on emotionally without feeling exhausted later. But every attempt started feeling heavier than the last. That is what made this season difficult to explain. Nothing externally justified the amount of pressure you were feeling internally. So naturally, part of you assumed something was wrong. Maybe you were becoming too sensitive. Maybe you were isolating too much, overthinking too much, paying attention to things that should not matter this much. But the feeling kept returning. Quietly, someone changes their tone slightly, and immediately your nervous system reacts before your mind even understands why. Someone asks something simple from you, and your stomach tightens before you answer. You leave certain conversations emotionally drained even though nothing openly negative happened. At first, those moments seem unrelated. Then eventually the pattern begins connecting on its own. You realize how much of your life has been organized around adaptation, keeping things emotionally manageable, keeping people comfortable, preventing tension before it fully appears. And many of those behaviors probably became automatic long before you recognized them consciously. That is why awareness feels disruptive in the beginning. You are not only noticing current behavior, you are seeing survival patterns that slowly became part of your identity. Awareness does not remove those patterns immediately. It removes your ability to stay unconscious inside them. And once that happens, the emotional cost becomes harder to ignore. The room goes quiet after you agree too quickly. The message stays open because part of you already knows you do not want to re-enter the same emotional cycle again. Something inside you recognizes the self-abandonment while it is happening now. That changes things slowly, but permanently. Most people misunderstand what heaviness actually is. They think heaviness means life is attacking them. But many times, heaviness is awareness colliding with misalignment. That is why this season feels different from ordinary exhaustion. You are beginning to notice things your old identity depended on ignoring. Not all at once, in layers. You notice which environments change your nervous system the moment you walk into them. Which people expect emotional versions of you that no longer feel natural to maintain. Which conversations leave you disconnected from yourself long after they end. And the strange part is that the old behaviors are still available. You can still over-explain, still over-accommodate, still make yourself emotionally understandable for everyone around you. But now your body reacts differently while you are doing it. The tension appears faster. Your patience disappears sooner. Certain interactions leave you emotionally scattered in ways you cannot fully explain to other people. And because nothing dramatic may be happening externally, this stage becomes deeply isolating for many people. Life still appears functional. People around you may assume nothing changed. Meanwhile, internally, your relationship to the experience has completely shifted. That is where the pressure intensifies. Not because life suddenly became unbearable, because the distance between awareness and behavior becomes harder to tolerate. You see the pattern clearly now. Part of you is still participating in it anyway. You feel it driving home afterward. You feel it sitting quietly after another interaction that forced you away from yourself again. You feel it when silence finally arrives and your body starts releasing tension you did not realize you were carrying the entire conversation. And eventually, something inside you stops cooperating the same way. Not dramatically, gradually. The old identity still exists, but it no longer feels fully believable. That changes the emotional experience completely. Because once the nervous system recognizes misalignment consciously, pretending becomes exhausting much faster than it used to. The pressure stops feeling random. It starts feeling directional. This is usually the stage where people begin trying to escape themselves behaviorally. Not consciously, but through noise, distraction, overstimulation, emotional numbing. Because sitting inside awareness for too long becomes uncomfortable when your life still contains environments that no longer align with who you are becoming. You may notice yourself feeling emotionally tired before certain interactions even begin. You may notice relief when plans get canceled that you once would have forced yourself to attend. You may notice how quickly your energy changes around people who require constant emotional adaptation from you. Those moments matter more than they seem, because they reveal internal reorganization already taking place beneath the surface. And reorganization creates friction before it creates clarity. That part surprises people. Most expect transformation to feel inspiring immediately, but many real transformations begin as exhaustion. Old emotional roles become harder to maintain. Certain conversations feel heavier faster. The nervous system starts resisting what the identity once normalized automatically. And because the external world may still expect the old version of you, this stage creates enormous internal tension. People still expect immediate emotional access, immediate adjustment, immediate participation, immediate emotional availability. But something inside you hesitates now. Quietly, the hesitation becomes the signal. Someone says something familiar, and internally you already feel resistance before the old reaction arrives. Someone waits for your answer, and part of you already knows the automatic response no longer feels true. You stare at the message longer because something inside you does not want to abandon itself the same way again. Externally, those moments may look insignificant. Internally, they change everything, because awareness is reorganizing your identity in real time. And identity reorganization rarely feels clean while it is happening. At times, this stage feels lonely, not because you are losing yourself, because you are losing unconscious versions of yourself that once helped you survive. Even unhealthy adaptations can feel emotionally familiar when they protected you for years. Part of you still wants to preserve them sometimes. That is normal, but awareness keeps interrupting the pattern now. And eventually, the emotional cost of ignoring yourself becomes heavier than the discomfort of changing. That becomes the real turning point, not when life suddenly feels easier, when awareness becomes stronger than avoidance. Slowly, the pressure begins changing form, not disappearing, clarifying. You stop needing immediate emotional resolution from every interaction. You stop explaining yourself constantly just to reduce tension in the room. You stop feeling responsible for stabilizing every emotional atmosphere around you. And life begins feeling cleaner because of it. Not perfect, not endlessly peaceful, cleaner, more honest. You begin recognizing which relationships require performance and which ones allow presence, which environments drain your nervous system and which ones allow you to breathe naturally, which conversations leave you grounded afterward instead of emotionally scattered. That awareness changes your decisions gradually, not through dramatic declarations, through quieter shifts. You respond slower now. You speak more deliberately. You stop volunteering emotional energy automatically. Some people notice immediately. Others only notice when they can no longer access the old version of you the same way anymore. And this is where many relationships begin reorganizing naturally. Some dynamics weaken once you stop carrying all the emotional weight yourself. Some conversations become shorter. Some connections become stronger because they no longer depend on performance. Nothing externally may collapse overnight, but internally your standards begin changing. You trust your body faster now. The tension in your chest matters. The exhaustion after certain interactions matters. The hesitation before agreeing matters. You stop arguing with those signals constantly. And slowly, the distance between awareness and behavior begins narrowing. That changes your relationship with yourself completely. The heaviness starts becoming direction. The confusion becomes discernment. The exhaustion becomes information. Because now you understand something most people spend years avoiding. Pressure was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to interrupt unconscious patterns before they became permanent identities. And once you realize that, this entire season begins feeling different. Not lighter all at once, but more understandable. Eventually, the pause stops feeling unfamiliar. It becomes part of how you move through life. You no longer react immediately just because other people expect emotional access from you. You no longer force yourself into emotional alignment with environments that drain you. You no longer override your awareness the moment tension appears. There is less urgency inside you now. Not because you stopped caring, because you stopped disappearing inside automatic reactions. That changes your presence. Your words feel steadier. Your decisions feel cleaner. Your energy feels less emotionally scattered. Some people may experience that change as distance, but it is not distance. It is self-trust. You listen to yourself differently now. You notice when your body tightens before speaking. You notice when something feels emotionally off before forcing yourself through it. You notice pressure earlier instead of overriding it automatically. And most importantly, you no longer betray that awareness immediately. That is what changed everything. Not one dramatic breakthrough, not one perfect moment. A growing willingness to remain conscious while the old pattern was happening. That small shift reorganized your relationship with yourself completely. And eventually, the heaviness stops feeling like punishment, starts feeling like guidance. This season feels heavy because something inside you can no longer participate unconsciously the way it once did. That is the real pressure, not life becoming impossible, awareness becoming impossible to ignore. You thought the heaviness meant something was wrong. But many times, heaviness appears when an old identity stops fitting naturally. The conversations feel different now. The reactions feel different. Even silence feels different. And slowly, you begin realizing something important. You were never just becoming more emotional. You were becoming more aware. Aware of what drains you. Aware of what no longer aligns. Aware of how much of your life was built around adaptation instead of truth. That awareness changes the way you move through the world. Not all at once, but consistently enough that eventually the old version stops feeling automatic. And maybe that is why this season feels so strange. Part of you still remembers who you were, but another part already knows you cannot move unconsciously the same way anymore. The pressure was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to interrupt the version of you that kept abandoning yourself automatically. And once you begin seeing that clearly, the heaviness starts feeling less meaningless. Not fully resolved, but precise. This is obsidian within, forged in the shadows, destined for more.